Welcome to the Analyst Inside Cricket. I hope you enjoyed those last couple of editions, actually, of our show. We had a lot of fun with that number 11s and scary moments one, which, of course, you can still download. And we're delighted to be joined, Simon and I, by a special guest today, all the way from Trinidad, Fazeer Mohammed.
Were there any doubts in the Caribbean that West Indies should come to England? I mean, obviously you talked about lack of infection, relative lack of infection in Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, we've had huge problems here. What about actually coming on this tour for the West Indies?
I think the cynical reaction was generally that if it were the other way around, if the West Indies were the ones with a lot of infections and were asking England to come, would they come? Or would we hear all sorts of long-winded excuses about why England would not be able to come because of safety and other considerations? And we need to be honest enough with ourselves and recognize that this is about Cricket West Indies, who've taken a $3 million loan from the ECB, which we only found out secondhand, that it's an unofficial quid pro quo. Of course, they'll never acknowledge that, but Cricket West Indies are in desperate financial circumstances. And while they won't be making any money from this series, the way cricket is structured now, the host nation gets all the revenue. It is intended essentially not just to fulfill an obligation, because this test series was already scheduled for the month of June, but it's been pushed back a month because of COVID. It's an opportunity for Cricket West Indies to show to the ECB and the cricket world, look, we're prepared to help in your time of need. And when we're in need, we expect you to do us the same favor.
Is it a problem that you've got both Darren Bravo and Shimron Hetmeyer missing? I mean, I'm worried a little bit about the batting, the West Indies batting, which, I mean, traditionally over the last 10 years has been a bit fragile, hasn't it? And actually the players that did well on that 2017, well, especially the win at Headingley, Craig Brathwaite and Shai Hope, neither of them have featured haven't made too many runs recently, have they? So is that a worry for you, their batting generally?
It's a big worry. There's no getting around it. The fact of the matter is the batsman who has the highest average there is Shamar Brooks, averaging 34.2. And that includes 100 against Afghanistan last December. And he's just played 3 test matches. Even Shai Hope, who you mentioned, he averages 27. His high point was that those back-to-back hundreds at Headingley, those historic hundreds. Craig Brathwaite, who probably should have gotten back-to-back hundreds in the same match just ahead of Shai, his average has plummeted from close to 40 to now 33. So without a Darren Bravo, without a Shimron Hetmeyer, the batting looks even more vulnerable, and there's no getting away from it. If the English bowl properly and the West Indies batsmen don't really fire, it could be a 3-0 whitewash. So that is a genuine concern.
Jason Holder's an impressive individual, isn't he? Top up there as one of the highest ranked all-rounders in world cricket at the moment, captain of a team who are, drawn from different islands and suddenly kind of piloted into England to play in this series against the backdrop of Black Lives Matter as well. He's an impressive individual.
He's very, very impressive. I think Simon, you guys have experienced the Caribbean enough to have enough of an idea of the insularity that prevails in our region. If you're from Barbados, you think that the whole rest of the Caribbean is against you. And as you go up and down the island, you sit in a taxi in Trinidad and the taxi driver picks everyone from Trinidad and Tobago in the team and says there's a campaign to get rid of their own players. And in that environment, to be parachuted in as a captain for a World Cup in 2015 at the age of 23, when you haven't really even established yourself as a West Indies player, and to be criticized from pillar to post up and down the Caribbean, and to still retain your level of focus, your demeanor, speaking to the public. I think he's an immensely mature human being. He's mature way beyond his years, and thankfully his numbers are putting a lie to all of the critics who are saying that he wasn't worth his place in a West Indies team. And it doesn't mean that he will necessarily engineer the complete transformation of West Indies cricket, but I think a lot of people are gradually coming around to the realization that Jason Holder as a man and as a cricketer is a lot more than what they were thinking of previously.
The series is being built up here a little bit as sort of Stokes versus Holder, the battle of the two best all-rounders in the world. Actually, Holder is number one at the moment ahead of Stokes. I mean, it's easy to just push together the two personalities, the two captains, as it turns out, as well in the first Test match. That's something we haven't talked about so far. Ben Stokes as England captain. What sort of captain are we expecting, Jose? I heard a quote from Stokes the other day saying, "Oh, I'll go with 9 slips and a gully," and the point's been made. Hold on, are you going to have no bowler or no wicketkeeper then?
I think he'll be really good, and I think that if you look at the sort of England players over the last couple of years, often the captain goes to Stokes first. Root or Morgan will go to Stokes. What do you think we should do now? Sometimes the captain goes off the field, Root goes off the field, and Stokes is in charge for a bit as vice captain. And I think he's got obviously massive respect from the other players. He's also got a tremendous knowledge of the game. He's always got ideas. You can see him sort of at slip, thinking about the game. He's got a very active mind. He's been great understanding of bowlers. I feel sometimes with captains who are batsmen, they don't really understand bowlers. But Stokes, as a bowler himself, will understand bowlers and will probably be a bit more tolerant with them. And I think actually it's the perfect scenario for him, because obviously he's a tremendous cricketer who's involved in all facets of the game. So to expect him to be captain for a whole series or a year or whatever is really tough. But for one game, absolutely ideal, because he can stamp his mark on it without having the burden of being captain for the whole series.
We should finish by asking what we think is going to happen. It's an invidious question to ask in a way. We can only be made to look like fools. What do we think is going to happen in the next month and these 3 Test matches? Are England going to win comfortably? Can the West Indies challenge them? Can West Indies win, defend the Wisden Trophy? What do you think, Fazeer?
Well, as someone who's been quite comfortable being made to look a complete fool with all these predictions over many years, I'll say England 2-1, simply for the fact that the point that you mentioned about Ben Stokes is interesting, because I think what the West Indies usually rely on is the English media turning on their own players after the first day's play, when things don't go exactly as everyone predicted, and all of the second guessing and so on happens to take place. And for the West Indies, if they can recapture some of that spirit that they've shown over the last couple of years, I think they would have gelled together beautifully over the time that they've been in isolation. That might be a plus for them. So I think they'll be competitive, but the concern about the batting, that will be a major concern. I don't think they can paper that over at all. And I think England home experience, the fact that they've got some quality players, even without a Joe Root in the first Test match, I think they should be able to edge it 2-1.
Yeah, I sort of think 2-0, only because I think one of the tests will be washed out at a crucial moment. 2 of the games are in Manchester. Probably one of those games will have a blank final day or a blank couple of sessions or something like that. August, late July weather. So I can't see the West Indies making enough runs to really put England under pressure enough to win a Test match. So I sort of think England will win 2-0.